an author from Costa Rica who founded Anima Mundi, a successful apothecary based in Brooklyn, New York, that offers an extensive array of healing medicines from the rainforest and around the world. It's so exciting to have you with us today, Adriana. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
This is so cool to talk about plants that can support sleep hygiene, dreaming, lucidity. And so I have several questions for you. The first one I'd like to ask is, what's your favorite tea before sleep to enter a meditative space?
Oh, I love that. I feel like it truly depends on the vibe that you're looking to have or what you might need in order to go into that deep state of sleep. And honestly, it changes for me constantly. Sometimes I'm feeling more like I need more of a nutritive tea versus more of a nervous system decompressant tea, or more of like a knockout because it's been a stressful week and you just kind of want to be zonked and going into the void of dreaming. But honestly, the one classic one that I know a lot of people and herbalists are very familiar with and they love is Blue Lotus. Blue Lotus is one of my favorites because it really enhances the hypnagogic state, which is the state that you're in before you fall asleep and in your waking life. So what's amazing is that a lot of these plants that we're going to review today is that they enhance and extend that in-between experience, enough so to allow you to realize that you're dreaming and you're walking into your dream semi-awake or fully awake. And Blue Lotus has a particular affinity with the pineal gland, which is like the classic organ that, creates this like deep inner vision experience. And it's really powerful because, as we start dreaming, there's so many visions that we receive. And what I love about certain plants is they help us diagnose the symbology and kind of like process it at different states and levels in order to like walk in and understand what your subconscious mind is projecting. And the Blue Lotus is just delicious. It was used since ancient times by the Egyptians, and they used a lot of rituals with it. They did like from bathing with it to like foot baths to wines or like tincture looking menstruum extracted in alcohol to enhance the alkaloidal potency, which now in like modern research, we have seen like what they were doing and what they were aware of. And they, since then, knew what was going on, which I think is incredible because the alkaloidal nature of Blue Lotus in itself is extremely interesting. It can be very euphoric and also very calming. It has this contrasting effect. So depending on what you are needing, the flower will manifest as such within your experience. So when you're having the tea at night, it sometimes might create more of an arousal in the sense of energetically just feeling more like alive and awake versus just deeply relaxed and kind of like that, kind of ready for deep sleep or deep meditation. So that is one of my absolute go-tos. I love to combine it with chamomile, something so simple. Who would have ever thought that chamomile can be such a powerful dream herb? It's like in most people's kitchen cabinets. And used in a fresh way, combined with the Blue Lotus, creates a perfect chemical complementation. So also used by the Egyptians, they combined chamomile and Blue Lotus to enhance that alkaloidal nature, which modern research also suggests that it actually is perfectly complementary. So those two are a fantastic tea. I can keep going and feel free to like jump in and tell me your experience or questions, but that's just one.
Well, I will say that I was surprised to hear you name Blue Lotus right away. I have a small package of it in my house that I have not opened. It was difficult to find. I like to go into shops, before COVID, go into actual shops and look for things. And I had this small little envelope of Blue Lotus, but I knew it was a very special plant and I wanted to honor it and be careful with it, I'll just say, and learn a little bit about it. So I think that's so cool that that's the first plant that you introduced on our talk today. Very cool. Now, maybe we can touch, on other ones, because there's many teas that one can take before sleep. Now, of course, the Blue Lotus to enter that, kind of elongated hypnagogic state. But how about other teas that could be part of a sleep hygiene ritual?
Absolutely. So another classic one that I love is passion flower. And passion flower is also very easily grown, easily found. It actually grows in a lot of the United States in like the southern, more warmer regions. And what I love about it is that it's a nervous system decompressant. So it relieves stress and anxiety on a very deep level. What I also love about it is that because of the deep relaxation that it causes, I feel like it's an entry point into the autonomic nervous system, which, if you think about it, the autonomic nervous system, now I'm like neuroscientist and so diving into this very intricate reality of what this system does, it actually is a direct gateway into like our dream state. So it also is known as like the pharmacy of chemicals generated by the autonomic nervous system actually enhances the pineal gland. So by taking the passion flower, for example, you're decompressing the autonomic nervous system from like the daily reality of like survival, stress, and anxiety into the chemicals that actually generate that deep inner vision, which also tackles the pineal gland. So I think it's great. It's excellent for like fried nerves, mild depression, mood swings, or if going into like, trying to like unveil states of trauma. Which lucid dreaming can be very powerful in, and going back into, let's say, experiences that might have caused trauma. Passion flower is one of those that I think is a great ally for that. On an energetic level, it can really help with PTSD as well. So that's a fantastic one. Either combined with the chamomile and blue lotus or on its own. It's actually quite tasty. I love combining it with other like very gentle nervines, which like lemon balm is a fantastic one. Also really decompressing, anti-anxiety. So yeah, I really love that one. Have you had any experience with the passion flower yourself? How has that been for you? Or if you have at all?
Well, I have a herbalist friend. She's a naturopath, and she has told me that I might want to check out that plant. So you are just naming all the ones that have been on my, in my awareness these past months. And so that's really cool. I'll remember that. So lemon balm combined perhaps with passion flower and even a little chamomile, and a touch of blue lotus. It sounds like can all work together or separately.
Yeah. And also a note on the blue lotus, because I know some people get afraid of it because there's so much crazy research. If you go like to Google or YouTube, you see like people having like psychotropic effects from it, but not to worry. As a tea, it is absolutely mild. The alkaloids are actually stronger in an alcohol type of extract. So if you have it as a tea, it is absolutely gentle. So not to worry. If you use like a tablespoon per cup type of like the flower and the stamen, it's totally fine. So you won't go into that psychotropic effect, just in case. I needed to say that. So another one that I really love that is not classically spoken about because it's a classic adaptogen, but it's not spoken about in the sense of like a nervine and dreamer, is Schizandra berries. So Taoist monks, for example, used to drink Schizandra berries to enhance clarity, like spirit clarity. They would use it in their meditation to like see like for memory, cognition, and also to enhance a deeper like visionary experience. It is a supreme tonic, used as like a classic kidney tonic and adaptogen, which basically curbs like the damaging effects from stress and anxiety, like in our endocrine system, for example. But it also targets the pineal and pituitary glands, which are the classic organs of perception that are said to yield the lucid dreaming experience. So Schizandra is amazing. And it actually even is a tonic for the eyes. So literally spiritually speaking and literally speaking, it's a great one to have. This one is not just great for nighttime tea, it's also great for during the day, which I think is also a very important part of the practice for lucid dreaming, is like how you're conditioning your subconscious mind during the day. So using plants as allies to enhance that experience, like Schizandra would be a great one for day work of lucid dreaming type of programming that I really recommend. So yeah, that's one of my absolute favorites. Another one that I love combining with Schizandra as a pair is Mukuna, which is also like an adaptogen, not officially an adaptogen, but definitely with a lot of adaptogenic nature in the sense that it helps curb the stress response. So it works directly with our endocrine system, on our adrenal glands, as well as the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, which is like the HPA axis. what I love about HPA axis activating plants like adaptogens is that they really like trigger the pineal gland in a way that it really yields like not only balancing like the serotonin and melatonin, which is what dictates our like, dream wake cycle. It also helps yield these like neurotransmitters that really facilitate with the visionary experience of dreaming and other things, like meditation, mindfulness, future self-projection, or any kind of visualization for healing. So Mukuna, for example, really yields dopamine, which is secreted in the pineal gland. So dopamine is like what we feel when we're in like ecstatic states, when we receive like a gift. It's like the reward hormone. So the more dopamine we secrete, we're naturally going to be activating the pineal gland, our third eye, to really go into that like deep inner visionary experience. But it also is naturally brain protective. So plants that trigger the HPA axis, for example, like Mukuna, we can actually start secreting the melatonin and serotonin. So melatonin is an incredible antioxidant neurotransmitter that acts like an antioxidant. It's like anti-aging, anti-neurodegenerative, anti-heart disease, anti-many things. And it's been used as like a vitality neurotransmitter in order to like feel in a state of like ecstasy, which is of course what we want. So for example, dopamine, which is also secreted in the pineal gland, will facilitate more of that melatonin expression. So to create that like harmonized and ecstatic experience, I think is vital. It kind of yields these like states of love and excitement and just like genuine fundamental happiness. So I think that is key. What's interesting also about Mukuna is it's considered more of a nootropic, meaning like a classically like a smart drug or like a drug that really helps you, not really a drug, but like in the plant-based sense of like really sharpening your mind and cognition and your memory. So a lot of people taking it during the day, but I think taken at night, it can actually really yield also that like true like remembrance. So it's really taken at night to trigger that remembrance of dreams the next day, as well as, of course, the million other benefits of like the adrenal, curbing the downside of cortisol and just kind of like giving you a very balanced homeostatic state, which I love. Shall I continue with more plants?
Well, I would love to hear maybe about a couple more. And then, of course, I have so many more questions I'm excited to ask you about. Before you share another one, could you remind us about how to prepare them? For example, I know some talk about use the most boiling water, rolling boil. Others say just hot water, but not boiling. And then there's time frames. So for the ones you've talked about, these sleep teas, could you tell us how to just do some general preparation before you go on to additional herbs?
Yes, that is such a good question. And I feel like most people get afraid to even to ask because they're like, how do I make tea? And they don't even want to ask. So anyways, there's so many ways to make tea, and it all depends how you find your plant matter. So for example, passion flower, if you have the leaf, it's so easy just to do an infusion. So literally you put the leaf straight into like a teapot or into a tea bag or some sort of tea strainer, and you pour boiling water over the passion flower. The Mukuna, which it can be found in its raw form and also as an extract powder, which is more classically found, which is better. The raw form can actually trigger a little nausea. So I really recommend getting an extract powder or like a tincture or an alcohol extract of sorts. It's best to use in that way. And also it can be added into any kind of like tea or infusion. There's no need to do a decoction, which is like simmering the plants. Very rarely a decoction is needed is only if you have basically raw roots. For example, one of the roots that we will be speaking about, which is the African dream root. It's a classic dream plant, also known as sosa. It is more of like a little root. It's like a smaller root, not so like gnarly as some of the other ones, but that would require more of a decoction. So anything that's more of like a bark or a root, you can boil for like 15 minutes. But the ones we've spoken about are all like easy infusions, which is the best for just like nighttime preparation. And you just infuse it easily into your teapot.
Okay, and that would be true for the chamomile blue lotus combo. You can tell what's on my mind, can't you?
Yeah, you like the blue lotus too. I can see it. I was going to mention another one for the blue lotus, like synergistic combo, which is mugwort, which is such a classic, in like dreaming communities, everyone always talks about mugwort. They put mugwort like on their pillow, literally a little bit of the leaf or some of the flower or like the whole plant. They literally leave put by the nightstand. It's supposed to be also just by literally placing the plants around you in your room, whether it's like a smudging stick or a leaf or whatever you harvested that day in the wild, if you happen to be walking in the forest. It can actually even trigger the dream state just by the smell and having it present and creating some sort of like, ritualistic experience before you go to sleep, which I really recommend as well. So, for example, mugwort is so bitter that the tea is almost, semi-unbearable. Some hardcore herbalists, I mean, I love it myself, but it is pretty bitter and you kind of have to get used to it. So, for example, putting boiling water over mugwort would be like, it would be so bitter and it won't be so pleasant and actually might even wake you up from before going to sleep. So in that sense, it might be good to think about how to ritualize plants into your routine before you're preparing for sleep, like mugwort in that case. Yeah.
Well, I must admit, Adriana, that I have a lot of mugwort in my house. So maybe we can talk about that a little more, especially with how like smudging with plants can be helpful before sleep. Because you mentioned mugwort in terms of taking the scent in or placing it around a person's bed or in the bedroom. And I've also heard about people burning it. So I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about lots of different ways to use mugwort, but also other plants that one can burn, to help before going to sleep.
Yes, absolutely. So I think I really love doing more of like the ritualizing of burning. I think burning has a very, alchemical aspect to it. And it's also like brings more of like that mindfulness, that inwardness, like preparing the space for meditation, which is one of my favorite ways to go to sleep. You do any kind of visualized meditation before sleep can be very healing on so many levels. So the scents of different plants can be so beautiful. And it really depends on what really resonates to me. And I'm a big believer on that. Although mugwort is like, classically used because of its chemical compounds, it really ignites that kind of like dreamy state. And it also has its other chemistry when also drank as a tea. Of course, it can enhance that deep inner vision experience. But I think just even burning it, for example, even like other Artemisia family, it can be used as well as like a smudge. It's great for cleansing and protecting like from, negative energy or negative thought forms. It's classically used to like clear space and like kind of bring white light into the space. So I really recommend it in that sense. I also love, like I used to do whatever I would wildcraft and would resonate with me in that day, which I really like motivate people to do is like cedar. If you find a little bit of cedar or juniper and you kind of bind it with some sort of like string and create like smudging sticks for your own kind of ritualistic use, I think is wonderful. Of course, there's other incredible woods, which are, very much used, like Palo Santo is a classic one. Palo Santo oil, ethically harvested, is a wonderful, wonderful tool as well that clears the space, clears the energy, and said to bring light into the auric field and energetic field in general. So I really love those, but the sky's the limit truly. And I think like it's so important to really go with what resonates intuitively versus just thinking like one particular plant on the, like aromatherapeutically, whatever's really resonating with you is for a reason, and like really stick with that. So I really recommend that. Yeah.
Also, it makes me think of, what do we have accessible to us in our community, in our vicinity? If we walk around if we have space or land, or if we have lots of parks or just something nearby, maybe there's a helping plant that's closer than we think, where we don't have to go online.
Exactly. And like also for people that like to also do like the smoking rituals, mugwort, blue lotus, even rose petals, chamomile, all in dried form is often used as like literally as a smoking blend. So if you're interested in that, I think is also a really nice way to create either an alternative to some sort of smoking that you might do already, or just for ceremonial purposes using them from smoke. For example, a classic one that's used as a smoke is done by Mexican indigenous people is Kalia sacatechichi, which I absolutely love. It grows here in Costa Rica too. It's all in Central America. And it's this beautiful bitter grass. They call it like the grass of God. And it grows by the riverbeds and it's easily found. And a lot of people use it for smudging and also for the smoking, like I was saying. And it really creates a very profound state. Not psychotropic, not to worry, but in the sense of just like relax. And when you're in it, it's supposed to help like reprogram the subconscious mind. And that's how indigenous people there explain it as, like they literally say like it helps rebuild the program that is no longer serving us from the inside out. And they really speak about it in such profound ways. And yeah, it's a powerful plant. Like that one, for example, like talking about bitter plants, when taken as a tea is almost unbearable. And a lot of people, when I recommend it, they're like, how the hell do you even swallow this? You know, it's like, it's so bitter. But again, it can be ritualized in so many ways. You can even have a dream pillow sachet, put it in some sort of like beautiful woven thing that you might create yourself, put it under your pillow or near your nightstand, and really can be very powerful as well.
I love that. There's so many alternatives or different ways we can use these helping plants. Like you said, whether we make a tea or use it as a smudging type of ritual, putting it in a little bag or little pillows. So there's something for everyone, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, let's talk a little, if we could, about lucid dreaming and plants that have been used for lucid dreaming since the ancient times. So I know you know a lot about this, and if you could kind of take us back through history with regard to plants and dreams and lucidity, that would be great.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's a very wide topic, you know, and like a lot of indigenous people, like in Central and South America that I've been more associated to, for example, have really used the art of tea blending and plant blending in such a profound way. Like they have received information through their dreams on how to combine which plants with what, and they actually have proven to be like absolute chemically complementary on such a profound level that it was amazing that they were receiving this information through dreams. So even in Tibet and in a lot of different Asian cultures, like indigenous Asian cultures, they really use plants to invoke the gods. And all indigenous people, so far from what I've studied and really learned from, they really use it as a tool to receive information. So what I think is fascinating is that each culture, of course, has their own set of plants that they have found within their own backyard, in other words. And for example, guayusa, which is a sister plant to yerba mate, mate, like what everybody drinks nowadays with a little straw. It's been used at 3 a.m. and they've been using it for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and drank at 3 a.m. specifically as a family in order to receive information in the middle of the night. It is a tradition that has existed forever, you know, since before written times, in that sense of writing down history. And they still to this day do it as one of the main ways to connect to the other side. Or for example, if a loved one dies, they all go as a community and do these rituals in the middle of the night, drink the tea, and then basically go back to sleep in order to go into this really deep state and receive information from their ancestors and how they can facilitate even the crossover to where they are or console their grieving process. You know, it can be so healing in so many ways. And same with other, plants in, like, for example, in India and in other Asian countries, gotukola, for example, a classic cognitive boosting plant that's used more during the daytime because it's said to like increase that energy, but it's actually been used to like really narrow the mind also for hundreds of, maybe thousands of years. There's Ayurvedic texts that are thousands of years old that contain all these formulations on how to create a focused mind during deep states of meditation and sleep. So it's fascinating to think like, wow, it's so incredible how our ancestors were so in tune to these realities and how plants were so deeply woven into that process. Same with the Egyptians. They spoke about blue lotus specifically as one of their main flowers to access the dream state in order to contact their ancestry. So what I love to see about all these trends worldwide is that all these plants that they are worshiping was specifically for that use, way beyond just like the ritual of like worshiping nature or just life itself or whatever religious activity they might be doing, but they were really doing it to access like other realities, which, as I'm sure a lot of lucid dreamers are watching this, there's a lot of information that comes through when you really narrow your mind in those like deep brainwave frequencies. You go into these realities where you're like receiving information from somewhere. It can be just nature itself or whatever you're pointing your mind towards, but it's really used in that way since ancestral times. And I feel like there's something about that because they all knew somehow that you went outside of time and space and you're receiving ancient information that has existed for millennia. And we are able to receive it now. And it's like this encoded reality that we can download from. So I know it's a pretty mystical, dimension in itself to speak of. And a lot of people that are not used to, like, let's say going in are not aware on how, or if it feels intimidating. But I just want to also like fortify the fact that like our ancestors all over the world were doing it. Everyone was doing it. It's an ancient practice. Putting yourself into sleep in this meditative way is an ancient ritual that everybody was doing. It's not like it was just specific kinds of people or just like the kings and queens or the oracles, or no, it was just like a common practice practiced by everyone. It was a natural way of connecting deeply into the source of where this encoded information is really coming from, which is so fascinating to me, and especially these plants that have been so interwoven with human history. They have been really like writing our history with us. And these plants were a key part of the ritualizing process of narrowing the mind and going into this state for very specific purposes. So I think that's just incredible. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And I think it was so beautiful how you shared. What really struck my heart was that you shared the practice of a family waking up together at a certain hour to take a plan together to contact a deceased loved one and be of service to them wherever they were in the process of crossing. And I just found that to really strike me and hit my heart. That's absolutely beautiful.
Isn't it amazing if, like, for example, right now, especially like during quarantine, like, what if we actually took this time to go together as a clan, whether it's like your blood family or whoever you call your family? What if you really start connecting deeper in these subtle realities that are just beyond just the physical sense? It's like beyond this third dimensional reality. And you're like really, truly healing yourself and actually secreting all these incredible hormones that are longevity hormones just by the mere fact of going deep inward and just tapping into that ancestral vein, So I think doing it together creates a deeper web, and it almost enhances the experience just by doing it as a group experience, which indigenous people did, even like monks, yogis. A lot of the traditions actually involve group experiences to go into the dream state. But of course, it can be done anywhere at any time. Even if you didn't have people to connect with physically, you can actually do it on an etheric level and connect it energetically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is so motivating, Adriana. I'm really excited talking to you. And, I'm wondering if you could share with the audience and myself here, respectful procedures or ways I'll just use the word respect. Another word isn't coming to me right now. But when we have access to plants in our garden or community or parks, and we want to harvest a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of that plant, what would you suggest are some really respectful ways to go about doing that?
Great question. Especially for wildcrafted plants, it's like, for example, Mugwort is a classic one found by the river, and so, or Kalia is a classic one. Even lemon balm can be, semi-wildcrafted, but it's more cultivated. It's always important to at least just, grab what you are going to use. Don't grab the whole patch you found. Always leave more than 80% there. A lot of people follow like 50% kind of, percentage of plant being left versus what you're harvesting. But I like to leave a lot more than what I am taking. Because it's just for personal uses, like If it's not for commercial uses, you're not going to go like start selling everything you find in the wild. What is found in the wild should be really, really intentionally used just for yourself. So I really believe that. It's like mugwort is very easy to grow as well, for example. So like if you didn't find it, you can easily grow it even in your living room, in your kitchen, in your little backyard, depending where you live, obviously. But in the summer, it will most likely thrive just about anywhere. So it's a great kind of like weedy plant to work with. And that way you won't be depleting the wild. Or if you don't have access to it, you can actually just grow it at home. Or any other Artemisia, actually, family of plants, which is what mugwort belongs to, is a great access for this kind of like dream work. For example, Artemisia absinthium, where absinthe is made out of wormwood, it's another beautiful one that would be easily grown and can be used for this kind of like dream work type of ritualistic practices. Yeah.
Very cool. It sounds like just, again, nature provides, the earth provides what we need for these types of practices. And of the herbs and plants that you've spoken about today, would there be any concerns or contraindications, anything that one would want to look into further before adding it to a ritual or routine?
I think all the ones mentioned are pretty safe drank as a tea, so like the blue lotus as mentioned, and made in alcoholic extractions of sorts of any kind, or even in a lot of people fermented in wine, which is more of like the Egyptian classic tradition. We have to be more careful with that, of course. Like if you're drinking any kind of like heart medications, it can be dangerous in that sense, or any other medications might interfere actually, because it's just a really relaxing, experience. But as for the other ones, for example, chamomile is extremely safe and non-toxic. Passion flower as well is generally very safe as a tea. Kalia sakatichichi, like it's so hard to drink it in high doses, but it's naturally protective. So just even in the smallest way is also very safe. It's actually very toning to the liver and the gallbladder. So like mildly detoxifying if drank in a very, small way. So I really recommend those, and they're very safe, and it's going to be fine. So I think it's okay. Yeah. But of course, some of the, but like I was going to say, like some of, like, for example, kava kava, which is also one I didn't even mention. It's a very relaxing plant. And a lot of people also make these like fermented brews with it. And it can be really, it can really slow the system down. So anyone that's any kind of medication with the heart or like nervous system disorders of sorts, I really be aware with how you're consuming it and consult definitely an herbalist or a naturopath or a doctor. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for sharing that piece with us as well. And before I let you go today, I would love to ask about every little jar behind you, but I don't have time. So we don't have time today. So I would love if you would just share any final thoughts that you have. I mean, you run this beautiful apothecary, and anything more you'd like to say about dreaming and plants? I'm all ears.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I think it's so easy to just get going on the practice. You just like stick to it. Don't get intimidated. I think, there's thousands of ways to like basically enable the experience. And I know there's all these like manicured ways online that people, talk about a lot and are like the classic ways to like enter the dream world. But I'm really all about finding your own intuitive way into connecting into these incredibly powerful informational realms. So just follow your gut truly, like, especially when you start secreting these hormones, naturally, like your intuition will be felt in a very different way, for example. So just flow with that and allow that process to happen. Like it doesn't have to be any kind of experience that you've been learning. It can be exactly as you're feeling it in that moment. When you're accessing the subconscious mind, you run into a lot of surprises. You're like walking in the unknown. You're walking in the darkness, and it's powerful and it's beautiful. And it's so important to just stick with that moment and being 100% present. Don't just try to like go to whatever was being told. Even the plants, like if you feel called with a particular plant that you've been like naturally connecting to because your ancestry perhaps is connected to it, absolutely go with that over the classic plants that are just so, also worship because of the pineal function, which is great, but just like really go with the messages that you are receiving. It is a very powerful process. I invite that 100%.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Adriana, for being here today. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I think we could go on and on because I'm so curious about all your lovely jars behind you. So I know how to find you. Say that again.
Next time we'll review the 200 plants. No problem.
Yeah, I'm just so curious about all those. And to reach you, we go to animamundiherbals.com, correct?
You got it. That's right. That's our website, and the same for social media for awesome information and education on plants. We love to be very education forward, so check us out. Will do.
Thanks so much. And I'm glad you were able to be here.